Once upon a time, there was a man named Sylvester. He was sitting on the ground, minding his own business, when all of a sudden, a Corvette was heading straight for him. The Corvette crashed right into him, and he fell down onto the ground. He lay motionless as the Corvette drove off. After the tragic Corvette incident, Sylvester has been dead for a few hours. I feel his muscles and notice that they are stiff. This is due to rigor mortis, the stiffening of muscles and joints after death. Muscle contraction is the cause for this, but I'm not quite sure how muscle contraction works. This is the science behind muscle contraction and rigor mortis. Muscle contraction begins when a signal is sent from the brain through the neuromuscular junction, and the signal reaches the sacroplasmic reticulum. This causes Ca2 plus ions to be released, and these ions travel down to the sarcomere. Some of the calcium ions attach to troponin, which causes a change in the muscle cell that creates an active site. This moves the tropomyosin out of the way, right here, so the cross bridges, also known as the myosin heads, can attach to the actin. In order for this to happen, ATP needs to come to the myosin heads. The myosin heads will hydrolyze the ATP, turning it into ADP and phosphorus. Being bound to the ADP, which is right here, the ATP disappears, and there's the ADP and phosphorus. Being bound to the ADP, the myosin head forms the cross bridges by binding to actin. As ADP detaches from the myosin head, like this, the myosin head will produce a power stroke motion where the myosin heads will rotate toward the sarcomeres. When this occurs, the muscles will contract, or the sarcomeres will move in, allowing for the muscles to contract. In order for relaxation to occur, the ADP and phosphate are recycled. A new ADP comes and gives energy to the myosin head, and this causes the myosin head to unbind from the active site. As this occurs, the calcium is also pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. When the myosin head unbinds from the active site, it allows the sarcomere to reorient itself and move back, causing the muscle to relax. And this, again, occurs on both sides of the sarcomere. Now that we know how muscle contraction works, let's understand how rigor mortis occurs. So the same process occurs for muscle contraction. And remember, the sarcomere moves in on both sides. Now, the muscle is in a contracted state. When it is in a contracted state, it requires an ATP molecule to come and attach to the myosin head, allowing for relaxation? Well, when someone dies, their ATP stores are depleted and they don't have any energy. So what happens is there are no ATP molecules to relax the muscles, and the myosin becomes incapable of detaching from this actin, and therefore the muscle remains in a contracted state. So basically that is how rigor mortis occurs.